Good morning. It is Monday, March 11th, 2024. It's just after 10 a.m. on the East Coast. And as usual, you can see my tabs. A lot to get to today. Some topics I'm just going to briefly touch upon. I'm just going to go fast. Seems the shorter videos tend to get more interest. So we're going to try to keep it short. This is Robston at CEO Technician on X, at Goldfinger on CEO.ca. And this is Goldfinger Capital on YouTube. As always, thank you for watching. If you find value in these videos, please like and subscribe to my channel, share with your friends. Start with the big picture, the Barron's and Economist cover. So this is the Economist cover from a week ago. How high can markets go? Bull with a balloon. Barron's cover Saturday. Bet on the bull. What do these covers mean? Honestly, they don't mean a whole lot. They're not predictive, but they are a gauge of sentiment, of investor sentiment, of what has happened in the recent past in markets. Economists and barons are going to be more bullish during a time when stocks have been going up, when they're in an uptrend. Um, if I have to say, what does this mean? Like, if market forecast based upon these, I don't have one, but this is probably not a great time to be buying stocks when you see these covers. Okay. Does that mean the market's an outright short here? No, it doesn't mean that. But this is a sign that sentiment is definitely elevated, and we know that elevated sentiment is not characteristic of bottoms. That's for sure, right? More likely, we are near a speculative peak in terms of investor sentiment. The Bitcoin price action above 70,000, the NVDA price action. I mean, NVIDIA since the beginning of the year is absolutely remarkable, adding $1 trillion in market cap in just over 2 months. We saw a reversal on Friday. We're seeing some downside follow through this morning. This is something to watch because this is so overextended that it could have a pretty significant correction. Now, NVIDIA could go back to 700 and still be up big year to date, but a lot of people would lose money who bought it above 900, right? So maybe, we're at a short-term peak. We're very close to a short-term peak, but my sense is, it's an election year. There's going to be more giveaways from Biden, more talk from Trump about tax cuts or God knows what. Probably this market has further to go in 2024 later in the year, but right now, sort of near term, and you can see the futures. We're seeing some downside here this morning. Um, Not a great time to be long. Okay, let's just put it that way. Gold was up above 2190 just about 30 minutes ago, pulling back to 2183. Gold has had a tremendous run above 2200 on Friday. It's a little bit hot here. Maybe we pull back. Maybe we can pull back to 2170 or even 2160 in the near term. That would be a healthy reset. But bigger picture, this is a very powerful longer term breakout in gold. So, I want to be a buyer on dips in gold. I do not want to be trying to short this market. That's for sure. Um, the weekly breakout. I mean, this is a very powerful weekly breakout that happened last week. Gold was up $90 on the week. Look at the volume. Sentiment is not even at euphoria yet. So there's still, I think, a ways to go in this move on the weekly time frame. But remember, we've got to be clear on time frame. So shorter term, 30-minute gold could pull back to 2160. But daily and weekly chart, I want to be a buyer of those pullbacks because I think we are going over 2200, maybe even going to 2250 or 2300 during this move. But that might take a couple months. It's not going to happen in a straight line. So anyway, we got through the Barron's covers. Again, I want to go fast. This is an interesting comment from Citi. China's CPI inflation has returned to positive territory the first time since 2023. So China is managing to stoke a little bit of reflation, but Citi notes the improvement could be temporary. Durable goods prices are still staying soft. and further policy efforts are essential to foster and consolidate the reflationary momentum. So we're going to continue to have this stimulus, further easing from China. I think that's a tailwind for gold. That's a tailwind for metals. I think it's bullish for copper. We're going to talk more about that later on. So yeah, Nvidia definitely, this is looking like it could be a blow off top, at least in the near term. It got up to 975 on Friday. And so it's already down over $100 a share. That's already a big reversal. But this is an $859 stock, so it can have these kinds of moves. But the fact that a company with a 2 trillion market cap is having 10 to 15% swings intraday, I think is more characteristic of a topping process than it is of a healthy trend. Okay, so I am definitely not a buyer of Nvidia. Um, I do have to note the transports as well, right? We have this Dow theory, sort of a non-confirmation, like when the Dow or the S&P makes a new high and the transports do not confirm, so they don't make a new high. That's a non-confirmation, and it's not a red flag, but it's definitely a yellow flag warning sign. And this, to me, in the transports, looks like this was like a failed breakout in early February in the transports. Now it's still above its 200-day moving average, so we have to give the benefit of the doubt here to the long side, but this is showing us some signs of caution. Okay, just some further signs of caution in terms of the broader market and stocks. Okay, it doesn't mean it's an outright short here, but definitely some caution. Now, I haven't talked a lot about medical psychedelics in recent weeks, but now it's time to talk about this sector. So let's do that. CYBN, here's the CYBN daily chart. Put in a little bit of a bottom here in the last month, and it's starting to make a threat of a potential upside breakout above 40 cents. Now, MindMed was the big story of last week, breaking out hugely on Thursday morning. It entered Thursday at $6 a share, went above 11 intraday, ended the week at 970. So MindMed with over a 50% rally at the end of last week, and this has put in place a very nice uptrend leading up to last week's news. So what was the news? It was the phase 2B full top line data for MM120. This is the drug that they're testing for anxiety. It is LSD, lysergic acid. It's their proprietary formulation of it. And the data was really quite exceptional. I can't go through a 70-page slide in this video, but let's just skip ahead to this slide, just sort of summarize it. Anxiety is a huge problem in the world today with all that's happening in the world, the addiction to cell phones. um, just people are anxious. People are just absolutely anxious all the time. 20 million US adults with moderate to severe anxiety. That is a very large population, um, with GAD. Okay. Second most common mental health, mental health issue among adults. Yet there are limited treatment options. So if you go to your doctor and you're like, I've got really bad anxiety, I've got really bad anxiety. Uh, I can't function at work. It's affecting my love life. It's affecting everything, right? So what are they going to give you? Most likely they're going to try a benzo on you, which is like Xanax. They might try an antipsychotic, or they might try, like an SSRI. Okay. 50% failure rate, often undesirable side effects, like it affects your sex drive, it changes your brain chemistry, right? Like these meds are short-term fixes to stabilize somebody, but they're not long-term solutions. So there's really no long-term solution to anxiety today. Okay, the mental health issues that are facing us, um, at an alarmingly high rate. Okay, uh, 6.5 million people do not respond to the first line of treatment for anxiety. So there's a huge unmet need. So MM120, the results, and I'm just going to go to, yeah, here. Here's just, you can go through this again. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I'm not going to even come close to it. But look at the results. 48% of participants are in remission at week 12. Okay. So basically, half of the participants in this phase 2B trial aren't having anxiety anymore at week 12. Okay. So there's a lot of benefits to the psychedelic compounds that have CYBN's CYB003 and now MindMed's MM120. The results are really very good. Okay, so uh, favorable tolerability profile, uh, double the standard of care of benzos and SSRIs. I mean, look at this 0.81 versus 0.38, in terms of the effect size. And it's a rapid and durable response observed after a single dose. So this is what's different that, if I have to take Xanax, I have to take it 1, 2, 3 times a day. So I'm going to build up a tolerance over time to the Xanax, and probably the effects are not going to be as durable. They're going to start to taper off after a few months. The fact that this is a single dose and the response in the patient continues after 3 months is phenomenal. Okay, so the phase 2B results from MindMed were nothing short of phenomenal, and the FDA designated it as a breakthrough therapy. So that gives it all kinds of advantages. And again, I'm going to stop here, but MindMed phase 2B results were fantastic. You can read it for yourself. So what now? Okay, I'm not saying to chase MindMed at 970. It's had a big move, but this is a very significant breakthrough for the medical psychedelic sector. Now, this is happening after MDMA from MAPS got advanced to the final round. It's pending full FDA approval. Probably that's going to happen this summer. The FDA has to rule on it by August. And then CYBN's phase 2B for CYB003 and MDD was also a very favorable result. So we're starting to have now a series of positive, results from the psychedelic trials. So after this sector went through some very rough years, 2021, 2022, 2023, there is starting to be some light at the end of the tunnel. And now 2024 is becoming a year of breakthrough for this sector, yet very few people are paying attention to it. But the FDA is paying attention, okay? So they're going to rule on MDMA assisted therapy for PTSD in the next several months. This could be another huge breakthrough and get mainstream media recognition for the medical psychedelic sector. So the reason why I'm talking about this in more detail now is now I think it's CYBN's turn to give us an update. In fact, I know it's their turn to give us an update. CYBN has been consolidating their financials. I think a lot of the weakness in the share price in the last couple of months has to do with their cash burn rate. The market is concerned about the level of cash burn, which I think was 17 million in the last quarter. They have plenty of cash now, but if they continue to burn it at a rate of 17 million a quarter, it's not sustainable longer term unless they have a much higher share price and they're able to raise money on better terms, right? So CYBN's sort of at a very key turning point here, and I think the next few weeks is going to be critical because we're going to get uh, an update from the company. It might be two updates, um, and so they gave a presentation at this Cowen conference, and you can see here. Um, Q1 2024. Q1 2024. So the data, the 4-month data for CYB003 is going to be announced in the next few weeks. This is going to be very important that the response among the patients stays robust. And then they're going to have they're going to start the phase 2A study of CYB004, and then they're going to have an end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA this month. Okay, it's Q1 2024. So you have 3 major catalysts coming here, and none of these have been announced yet. So we're going to get these announcements in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I think this is going to be very important potential turning point for CYBN. If the efficacy data, the 4-month data in CYB for CYB003 for MDD, you recall the CYB003 is their psilocybin formulation. In MDD stays robust. If the results are as good as the last update, this should be a very, very big positive for the company. Okay. And then the end of phase 2 meeting to review phase 3 protocol for CYB003 is also a very important catalyst. And then they're going to, initiate CYB004 phase 2 for GAD as well. So you can, review the presentation from the Cowan conference for yourself. But I feel like this could be CYBN's time to shine. Like MindMed had its time the last couple of weeks, and now it's CYBN's turn. And this sector is just starting to get some traction. Okay, so I really like CYBN here. I think MindMed is also still very good. Obviously, the opportunity is not as big as it was a week ago, but I think MindMed is still very good. And ATAI at TAI is another one I picked at the beginning of the year, and this is not backing off at all. So I think this sector at TAI, CYBN, MindMed, it is set to continue to outperform in 2024. So we want to stick with the medical psychedelics theme because not many people are paying attention yet. And this sector stands to revolutionize the paradigm for mental health care, okay? Mental health therapies. Okay, so moving on, I can't harp on it too much. Oil market seasonality. So, we want to think about trades that, one more. I almost forgot. I'm glad I had this up. So remember, we're going to have this MDMA potential approval in the next few months. It's got to be by August. So they have 5 months. I think it's going to come sooner. It might come in June. Not sure, but I think it's going to come sooner than August. When it gets full FDA approval, well, here is a little Canadian biotech called Pharmala. Okay, I do not own this right now, but this is definitely on my radar over the next couple of months because they have a controlled drugs and substances dealer's license from Health Canada. And they've been very focused on MDMA in all different ways, including doing a trial in Australia. Okay. So MDMA assisted therapy is still very new. Okay. And Pharmala is at the cutting edge of how to build a business around MDMA, okay, and helping with psychedelic, assisted therapy for PTSD, for the treatment of PTSD. And the fact that they have this license from Health Canada, I believe it gives them a lot of advantages and a first mover, okay? And if nothing else, when MDMA gets FDA approval, the headlines are going to hit and people are going to type in MDMA as the stock symbol, and here you go. You have MDMA in Canada on the CSE. Okay, it's a tiny market cap. I don't own it right now, but this is one that I definitely continue to have on my radar, and I may own it at some point in the future. Okay, so I'm glad I didn't forget Pharmala, because I think that's an important one that could have a lot of torque uh, when MDMA does get that FDA approval announcement later this year. Okay, natural gas. Wow, what a disaster! I'm not long natural gas here. I'm not looking to get long instantly either, but just on the radar here, because this is such a capitulation watch out in this chart. I got to think around a buck 50, buck 60. There's got to be some value here, but it hasn't set up yet, at least not from a technical standpoint. So crude oil and oil services, OIH, maybe some of the big integrated oils. So what I'm looking for, I'm not long this sector now, I'm not long oil now, but what I'm looking for is the seasonality trade. Oil has a very favorable seasonality from April to June. Okay, you can see 20-year back test. The results are pretty much outstanding. It tends to rise over 10% from the beginning of April to the end of June on average. In April, it's up more than 2 out of 3 times. Same thing in June. Okay. So I want to be long of oil stocks heading into April. It's not April yet, but we're just a few weeks away. Also, OIH has very favorable seasonality in April, up an average of 5.2% for the month, up about 3 out of 5 times in April in the last 20 years. So I like this setup. And if I look at the OIH chart, I look at a potential double bottom here, January and February, and we're just turning up off the bottom. So I want to position myself long of OIH during pullbacks here uh, in the next couple of weeks. Okay, so I have the rest of March to accumulate that position and enter into OIH. So again, I'm not long here, I'm not long OIH, I'm not long oil or oil stocks, but I'm putting this on the radar um, for viewers and on my own radar. I want to get long um, into April. And there's a bunch of other factors as well. I think Trump standing to win in November is good for the energy sector, period. Um, and I see that as likely. Okay, I see a Trump win as being likely at this point. Now, obviously, there's going to be some different permutations on how that plays out, but again, I want to go in with a long bias into oil stocks, into oil itself, and use the chart technicals, shorter term, the daily chart, the 4-hour chart, to find an entry point here. Okay, I like this bottoming setup in OIH. Okay. So let's keep going. Copper. So look at what copper's done in the last month. It started to move up. It's testing up closer to this key resistance level at 395. It's tested this level several times in the last 6 months. Okay, it's tested up to 395, 397, and pulled back each time. Well, I've learned that the more times a level is tested, the more likely it is to eventually break that level. So this is like the 5th test since the end of November. And I think it's starting to become more and more likely that copper breaks out above $4 here in the next couple of months. There's a UBS report stating that 2024 mine production is going to disappoint to the downside. There's going to be very limited growth in supply in 2024 versus 2023. And so we're facing a material copper deficit globally in 2024. And the lack of new mine approvals increases the probability of a protracted period of deficit. So this is not going to be a 2024 thing or just a 2025 thing. This is going to be a 2028 thing, a 2029 thing. It's going to continue. Just the lack of new mine supply and the continued challenges in terms of production growth at existing projects means that copper is set up for a continued deficit. You can see this is old. Okay, this chart is over a month old, but it's still very relevant. The fact that 2025 expected deficit is 700,000 metric tons. Cobre Panama is showing no signs of coming back online anytime soon. So we are still facing this very bullish setup that I laid out in January in my presentation, the only two metals that you need to own. And the technicals uh, are looking better and better for copper. So, how do we want to play it? Well, I want to play it a few different ways. I like owning a producer like Freeport-McMoRan, which is FCX. But I also like the explorers, right? And I've talked about a number of copper explorers. VRR was one that I highlighted in my MIF presentation at the end of February. And this morning they announced that they're selling their Hecla Kilmer rare earth property for total consideration of 3.6 million. So it's a little complicated. Cash consideration of 1 million from the company that's buying it. 600,000 is paid in 2 weeks, and then the balance of 400,000 is paid no later than April 26th. So they're going to get $1 million in cash in the next 6 weeks. Okay, and this is going to help VR with drilling at their new Boston project in the Walker Lane Trend, just a little bit south of Reno. Um, I talked about that in my MIF presentation in Toronto at PDAC, in the pre-PDAC. Okay, so I think Hecla Kilmer had become a non-core asset for VR, and they really no longer wanted to pursue it. And so this gives them some of the upside still, because they're going to get paid. Like, most of the consideration is in shares of the Inquirer, which is NTMC on the CSE. So they're gonna hold some upside through the shares of the Acquirer, and they're also going to have a right to purchase at any time a net smelter royalty of 1.5% from the original property vendor. So there's a royalty on the project that is still held by the original property vendor. Okay, so VR continues to hold some upside to Hecla Kilmer, but it gives them a much needed near term cash infusion to pay for drilling at New Boston, and they maintain some upside exposure longer term to the asset. So I think a very good deal for VR, because they were going to probably have to do $1 million private placement if they didn't do something like this, and so they did it. Um, I expect yeah. So more importantly for VR, the funds from this transaction will be allocated directly into the ground on the copper moly silver porphyry system on our new Boston property. Okay. We intend to activate plans for a maiden drill program at New Boston this spring. So basically, they're going to get the 600,000 cash on March 28th, and they're going to immediately activate the drill program. So most likely, we're going to see the commencement of drilling in early April at New Boston. That program would probably take about a month, I would guess. Not sure exactly, but that seems about right for the size of the program they plan to do, 3 drill holes. So the drilling is imminent. I mean, when it's less than a month out, it is imminent. So this is a very exciting time for VR. I really like the new Boston property and the drill targets that they have lined up there. Again, I'm not going to go into that because I've talked about that already, but I continue to be a shareholder of VR Resources, and that's a nice early stage copper porphyry play. Okay, and I really liked this slide from VR's presentation that they did for Eric Kaufman in January, showing the porphyry trend. So this is going back in time to when the Earth was shifted a bit, and some of these deposits were basically out in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, I've not a super expert on the history of this porphyry belt, but I do know that there's been some shifting of things over the last couple 100 million years, and you can see that these were basically islands out of the Pacific Ocean, and now they're not islands anymore. Okay, like this is BC, this is Idaho, and this is the Walker Lane Trend. Okay, so this is the western part of the U.S., so North America, and it's kind of interesting because look, there's no porphyries in this gap here. Well, that gap is now Idaho, and that is interesting because that may be about to be turned on its head. That gap is actually going to get filled in a bit. That there actually are some porphyries in Idaho that just haven't been uncovered to this point in time. Okay, this is very interesting, and I'm very much a student of this topic and learning more and more about the history of porphyry formation. And here you can see another porphyry map. This is BC, so this is now Western Canada, Highland Valley, Copper Mountain. This is the Golden Triangle, KSM and Red Chris, Mount Poly, and then here's Oregon. No active porphyry mines in Oregon. Oh, sorry, this is Washington. Sorry, this is Washington. I'm American. Trust me, I know my map. This is Washington, and this is Idaho, and this is Oregon. So there's no operating porphyry mines right now. There's past producers, a couple in Washington and in Idaho, nothing in Oregon. All right. But basically, these rocks from 200 million years ago, the same ones that are in BC, extend into Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. So Cuddy Mountain, which is where Hercules made their new discovery at the end of last year, is right there in this arc, and I'm pretty sure their rocks date the same, back to the same time. Okay, so that's that's basically it. So, and also I'll just say, so we haven't gone an update from Hercules, but we know the drilling is starting, within a couple months. It might be end of April, might be early May, not exactly sure, but I think they're definitely planning that drill program, and we will get an update over the coming weeks from Hercules. Another piece of news this morning came from Rupert Resources, um, and Orion. Okay, so where's the news? Okay, I got to pull it up. So this is from Orion's website, and Orion is a sponsor of Goldfinger Capital. So I am biased, but I'm just reading the news here. Orion Resources receives notice from B2 Gold of offer to acquire B2 Gold's joint venture interest. Orion considering options regarding right of first refusal. So, Orion has the right to basically match any offer that is made for B2 Gold's 70% interest in the Helmi project in the central Lapland greenstone belt in northern Finland. So basically, just read this. This is not my opinion. These are facts. Rupert is offering 28.644 million shares of its common stock in consideration for B2 Gold's 70% interest in the JV company. Orion holds the other 30%. So B2 is the 70% holder and the operator of the JV that operates the Helmi project. Okay. So the total consideration equates to about 100 million Canadian dollars based upon Rupert's current share price. Now, I want to point out this is the first offer. This is the first offer. Orion is saying it has until May 9th to decide whether it will exercise its ROFR. Orion is evaluating the notice of sale and offer and will update the market in due course. Okay, so they're just saying that they are being made aware by B2 that Rupert made an offer. That's all we know. Okay, that's all we know. But we do know some other things. Rupert announced on March 3rd for PDAC new results from the winter drilling campaign at the Haina South, an extension to the, 4 million ounce Ikkari deposit. Okay, so this is their flagship asset, 4 million ounces. It's actually probably much larger than 4 million ounces, but that's what the resource says it is. And they drilled 16 grams per ton over 25 meters at Haina South. And let's look at the map. So this is the Ikkari extension. So here's the Ikkari deposit. Here's the license boundary. So this is the property boundary with Helmi. So B2 and Aurion are over here. And this is, it's hard to see. They made it very faint, but you can see the property boundary goes here. B2 and Aurion own all of this, okay? And this is the trend. Look, they're drawing the red dots. The trend extends over onto Helmi, B2 Gold, and Aurion. And also, these new step out holes that they've drilled are showing trending to the west. And this is Helmi. Okay, this is B2 Gold and Aurion. Okay, so I'm just pointing that out. I leave this for the viewer to dig into if they want. Here's another map of Ikkari, Haina South, and you can see this is extending to the west, and this is Helmi over here. And you can see this is, Ikkari, and this is the planned open pit, and you can see this is the property boundary right here. You can see the open pit is right there at the property boundary. And Aurion, by the way, has 100% over here to the southeast. So this is interesting news, and Aurion is up a bit, is up 11% on this news this morning. So this is interesting, and I just want to make you aware of that. So I'm a shareholder of Aurion, and I didn't buy or sell any shares on this morning's news. Okay, I'm just pointing it out to the viewers because I think it's interesting. And by the way, Rupert was one of my picks at the end of 2023. So I like Rupert. I like Aurion. I like this area of Finland. Okay, I think it's a great jurisdiction for gold mining and for mining, more generally speaking. Okay, so I picked Rupert at 350. It's 360 this morning. So basically about even on that one. Gold moving up a little bit, 21.87.70. And I think that is my wrap. So stick with the copper porphyry theme, do your own due diligence, check out the news from VRR, New Boston, very interesting one. The Aurion, Rupert B2 situation, that is very intriguing. What's the chess moves being made there, and medical psychedelics that continue to be long. CYBN, Thai, MindMed, and we're looking at a trade in oil and oil services heading into April. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope you gained value from this video. Again, hit the like and subscribe button if you did, and have a powerful trading week.